Apologies for not updating the calendar invite. I overlooked that part. I didn't know I had to add access to it. Yeah, we realized yesterday that the Zoom link was going to Xiaowei and from an old meeting that she inherited. So, and the automation is not working currently for the repo. So we were trying to come up with a temporary solution that would not end up in Xiaowei's lap. Almost got there, but anyway. My name is Will, and I joined the EF not too long ago as a research coordinator, and have been asked to help moderate these calls and do some overall coordination efforts. So, yeah, I tried to spend last week going and meeting with a couple of individuals and just kind of getting a high level overview of the status of the project, and then just trying to distill all that into the agenda issue that's in the PM repo that I shared in the chat. So nothing really new is going to change about the course of the meeting today. We're going to first start off with client updates and then go to DevNet updates, and then jump into specifications and testing and all that stuff. So I will, I'm still trying to get a sense of who all the representatives are for each client team. I tried to put like my best understanding of a roster in the chat, or sorry, in the issue. But if I got anything wrong or overlooked anyone, not my attention, just really trying to get a better understanding of who all is contributing and who works for who. But that said, if there's someone from the Prism team, I don't know if we just want to go around the horn and get a sense of where we're at with client updates.
Yeah, sure. So, hi, welcome. I'm Manu from the Prism team, and I'm the main contributor on Prism about PeerDAS. About the last week, so you may know Prism had some issues with the way it stored data columns in the database. We needed too many. We needed one file per data columns, which was an issue. So I spent the whole week working on redesigning a new database. There is something working right now. I was able to sync a node on the DevNet from my local computer, and Barnabas or Perry are going to roll out this new version to the PeerDAS DevNet 5, which should normally get back to live, Prism super nodes. At the same time, I spent a lot of time. I was quite missing unit tests in Prism about PeerDAS. Some unit tests were still missing, and I pushed them up to far future epoch. And so I decided it was a good time to do it now, before it's too late. Yes, it was my main contribution, and Francis from Base worked on GetBlob v2 and the equivalent API when proposing a block locally. That's pretty all for Prism. And maybe Dmitry is here from Teku.
Yeah, Teku, we have finally released validator custody. We have tested it internally, started testing with EF DevOps now. Have some issues, but we are in contact, so the issues will be resolved. Also, we have added new PeerDAS metrics with the help of Katya and are working to resolve some bugs. That's all for Teku, I think. Lighthouse, Jimmy.
Hey, thanks, Dimitri. From Lighthouse side, we are still fighting through sync issues. We are focusing on getting our scoring, improving our scoring when we do sync. So that should improve Lighthouse ability to sync to head. At the moment, the DevNet 5 node, Lighthouse Geth2 is still down. I think we've got to the bottom of the the root cause already. We just haven't been able to merge the fixes yet to our main branch. So we're just going through reviews at the moment. We've got a bunch of sync improvements, so we're working on that. And on the distributed publishing side of things, we've got the spec PR created. And I see I've seen some comments on the PR already. I feel like it's good to go. Maybe another round of review if anyone's interested. But on the Lighthouse side, we're also working on making Lighthouse compliant with the spec. So at the moment, a full node doesn't do distributed publishing, and I think I've described in the Discord as well. It kind of hurts the propagation of blobs because we when we receive a blob in the EL and we convert it to data columns and we mark it as seen on gossip. But if we don't forward it, then it kind of like stop the propagation if future data column arrive to Lighthouse. So yeah, we're going to work on that fix this week. And other than that, yeah, but the custody is also going well. We still haven't we don't have an implementation yet. I think it'll probably still be a week or two away because we have to do some refactoring. Yeah, that's all from my side. I will pass it on to Lodestar.
Made good progress with the refactor and getting it unit tested, kind of the same as Manu mentioned. And then we're spinning up a new contributor in order to help with the validator custody. So thanks, Derek, if you're out there. And came up with an interesting issue. I think Gender brought it up on ACD about people making sure we have peers that are listening to all of the subnets to make sure that when you publish a block, it actually gets received by somebody on the other end. So we're looking at tuning how we manage our peer pool in order to ensure that we always have somebody listening. And we have an interesting opportunity or idea in order to how we manage walking DISP5 in order to make sure that we have what we need cached so that when we need to find new peers, we're readily able to connect to people who are listening to the correct topics. Still probably, like Jimmy mentioned, a couple weeks out from validator custody, but we're making good progress getting the new contributor rolled in. And, things look pretty good on the DevNet, though. And I guess maybe Grandine, I don't know if I heard that name, or actually, or Nimbus, I guess would be next.
I don't see Agnish on the call, so maybe we skip Nimbus, and Grandine's given an update on chat. So they started implementing offload proof computation with edging get blobs v2. It's not working yet, and they're investigating, and they parallelize crypto functions in PeerDAS. So yeah, I think that would be all the client updates.
Thanks, Barry. Do you want to go into DevNet updates?
Yeah, sure. So PeerDAS .NET 5 is still up and running.
I'm sorry, actually, do we normally go through EL client updates or do we go right to DevNet
up until
updates?
now, we actually haven't, but
Okay.
now that there are some EL client teams here, maybe we can give them a chance, and then we can do DevNet.
Sounds great.
Yeah, I see FLCL from Netherlands, so maybe you want to go first.
Yep. Hello, guys. So we have a proof of concept branch with API methods implemented, and I guess it should work in part of P2P transaction propagation, and we want to test it in a multi-client environment. So we'll be glad to join any DevNet as a execution layer client. Yeah, I guess that's it. Roman from Res, you chime in.
Yes, hi. So we not much has changed since last week. Like we have all of the types implemented. What I will really looking forward to is locking in the specs and making sure that none of them message type decoding or the way we treat like any request types or network message types is fork dependent. And once we lock that in, I think it's like 1 or 2 days out to us being ready. For what it's worth, latest changes from Francis look pretty good so far. And I will have a couple of questions regarding those changes, but I guess we can go over them after the client updates. And I see Felix from Geth.
Yeah, so not a big update from us. We have an open pull request about this encoding stuff, but we haven't really reviewed it. A lot of people are on vacation this week, so we actually we haven't really actively worked on it.
Okay, maybe I can do DevNet 5 updates, then we can talk about the open PRs, and then we can do DevNet 6 planning. Does that sound good?
Sounds great.
Okay, so DevNet 5, we have been gradually increasing the number of malicious PRs. What they normally do is either withhold columns or delay when they publish stuff. The last update, I think, has been about a week ago. So roughly 30% of the network is acting malicious in some way or form. And this is in a network with already 60% full nodes and 40% super nodes. We are still waiting for some fixes. So there's the Prism fix, and I think Barnabas is building and rolling it out now. So once that's back up, then we'll continue increasing the number of malicious nodes. But as of now, I think there's nothing else major planned for testing on DevNet 5. So it's mainly helping teams get to a stage where we can talk about launching DevNet 6.
Excellent. In terms of the open PRs, how do we want to handle that? I've got a list in the of spec related ones in the issue. Or Perry, what's the best way, or how do we typically proceed to that, or Jimmy?
Yeah, I think we can just go with the ones in the issue. If those are up to date, then that should be perfect.
Yeah. So I shared the issue at the top of the chat. I'll drop it in again here, but really this is starting with we can come back to the EIPs, I guess, as part of a discussion. In the specs, I've got the basic validator custody. Francesco, is there anything regarding that you would like? It appears to be done, but I just wanted to flag it and see if there's anything that you wanted to highlight.
No, not really. I mean, I think there's an open PR by Gabriel or Alex to maybe clarify some of the language, but I don't think it's, yeah, I'm not sure it's worth this.
Okay. And then G11 Tech, the make validator custody static for beacon node run session appears to be ready for review but there's still some open comments on it. And they might not be on the call.
That would be Gajender.
Oh, good matter. Okay.
You want me to give a summary of my comments?
Yeah, or if you could just help me understand the status of that PR.
And what's the blocker with getting it merged ideally?
Which particular PR we are talking about?
The make validator custody static for beacon node run.
Oh, yes. So the status is that we, I think Alex was going to look at it to see whether we would want to change spec a bit in the sense to remove validator indices from where we are saying get validator custody and replace it by supported stake, as well as in is available data. I think I'm not sure whether it's in this PR or there is another PR where is available data also has validator indices. So basically, so my recommendation was that even if we are not doing static or we want to do dynamic because of the UX, we still clean up the specs and put supported stake over there, and then obviously also have a way to specify how that the validators have to register with the beacon node, and for beacon node and a small helper function to calculate the supported stake for the beacon node from the validator indices, which take in state as the input. So I think I can basically rework the PR if basically we want to go in this direction. So I think Alex was to give some feedback on this, or someone or anyone else who wants to chip in is welcome as well.
Did anyone else have thoughts on this PR or feedback for Detender? Okay. I'll drop the next one in the chat. So this is picking up an issue that Stokes had filed. I don't know, Francesco, it's related to the validator custody specs. I'm not sure if Gabriel's on this call or not, but if there's anything that people feel we should discuss here, let me know. Oh, okay, Alex just has to review it. Thank you.
That was for the previous one. I'm not sure about the complete validator specs. Is there any blocker for merging it in?
I don't believe so. Yeah, it just looks like Alex is awaiting the review there, so I'll ping him, let him know that that's in the queue for him.
Yeah, I just wanted to hop on the call, said he just wanted your opinion, and if everyone here agrees with the PR, we can move ahead and merge it.
Great, thanks, Gabriel. This is a one from Justin. He's not on the call. Regarding the get blobs data column sidecar. This is actually just an open issue, so I don't know if there's anyone that feels like this issue is something that needs to be picked up, or what the status of it is. Apologies for the naive questions. I'm just trying to get kind of a level set understanding of where things are at now. So I'm just
yeah, no worries.
through all
But yeah,
these.
this is it's something that just came up in Discord a few days ago. It's kind of just a small optimization that yeah, basically it's just saying you don't need to wait until you get the block to pull blobs from the YAL mempool. You can do it as soon as you get any data column sidecar. So yeah, in principle, if you get at least one column before you get the block, it would be faster to trigger the mempool pull then. So that yeah, that's all the issue is about. I think it's most likely worth like doing this like small spec changes to kind of clarify that this is a possibility and that it's encouraged behavior to do this. And yeah, I think that's that. It's nothing like super urgent, but
Okay, great. Good gender. I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, I mean, the counterpoint is that we basically, till we get the block, there is time for EL to sync the blobs, right? So if we, for example, get the first blob and start trying get blobs on the EL, and it might not get enough time to basically pull or get other blocks and basically get blobs more complete, more fully. So I think, I mean, in terms of my implementation judgment, I think when we see a block, then it's the best time to pull the blobs, because otherwise, I mean, we can't delay any more than that. So, or basically when we get the block again, we do a pull of get blobs. At least that has to be done twice then.
So I kind of disagree on this being better, because it's not just about your own custody being satisfied, in which case, yeah, like you could do it at the latest possible moment and it wouldn't make a difference, other than like the small latency of actually getting it from the EL. But you're also like kind of meant to contribute to repropagating these columns, like reconstruct columns from the blobs you get from the EL and contribute to propagation. So I think it would be much better to just do it as soon as possible, so that like you're kind of maximally helpful to the network.
So what we are saying is that we do get blobs, and as soon as we see something, and if we have all the blobs, so basically we can construct all the columns, then we reseed the network with those columns. Is that the intent of the PR?
Well, that's not what the PR says, but like the distributed blob publishing or whatever it's called, PR that we were discussing before from Jimmy, it does clarify the language to be that. I think maybe it already was that way, but anyway, like, yeah, that's definitely part of the distributed blob publishing spec, that you should be treating these things as if you got them from gossip and repropagate them. And then yeah, what Jimmy just linked. And then, yeah, this issued from Justin is just like a small optimization that, given that existing behavior, makes it in principle better. Does that make sense? Like, it just allows you to contribute in this way to column gossip earlier than you might otherwise do if you just do it on block instead of on any column.
I mean, can we also piggyback these API calls to basically indicate to the EL which blobs or which columns it should aggressively pull if we are going towards distributed blob building? And if we are not going towards distributed blob building, then maybe it can aggressively try to pull the blobs it doesn't have from its EL network. I mean, if we want to piggyback on this to sort of strengthen the P2P network.
I didn't really catch that. Not sure what you mean by.
So when we do get blobs, but we can't do it for all the commitments unless we have the block. So I was
No, you
thinking
can do it.
that,
You have all the commitments when you get a column. Like a column contains all the commitments. So as soon as you get a column, you can get all of the.
Yeah, right. So basically, then we can send all the commitments to the EL, and maybe EL can also start aggressively looking for it from the peers if there is some sort of a peer announcement for the blobs that the peers might have.
Right. Yeah. Okay. You mean like, yeah, making it like also like an EL side kind of contribution to looking for it. Yeah, I think that would also be good.
Cool. So yeah, it sounds like maybe we're at a a compromise or have selected a direction. Great. The next one is in the execution specs. This is really just a variable or a type change to a variable. What was it? Update the blob gas used. I think this was back propagating into forks beyond when blobs were introduced. Nothing major here. I believe the community contributor is still working through it, but just flagging it here in case anyone wants to discuss it. If not, All right. And then the next group, I believe these are all related to. Sorry, there's a testing one, and then Francis had a collection of related. Yeah, here they are. So there's some tests that are related to execution tests, and then there's 3 that are all Francis dropped all of these on Friday night, I believe, that were related to the cell proof related, or sorry, the cell proof calculation. So there are 3 different changes to the builder spec, the execution API, the beacon API, and then he also opened 2 issues, one in Prism and one in Geth, that were proof of concept implementations of this. So I don't know if we want to discuss these individually or as a larger effort.
I think as a
I would
larger effort
suggest
might
to.
make sense.
Yeah, I would just gonna say the same thing. Yeah.
Sorry, what was that?
I was gonna say exactly the same. Yeah, I think we should discuss the whole like self-proof computation as a bucket.
Okay, great. Is there someone that would like to start that? Oh no, Francesco or Pari? Oh, sorry, Jimmy. Do either of you have enough context to be able to speak to it?
Yeah, I mean, I can speak to it in general, but so my sense is here, like really, the most important thing that we can do on this call is for EL clients to like talk to each other about this and come up with like what they actually like about, you know, should there be this version by it, should there not be this version by it, about yeah, I mean, all of the things that have been discussed in the self-proof specs Discord. Like there's various like kind of small parts to this that people have had strong opinions about, it seems. So I think, yeah, it would be more helpful for you guys to just like hash it out and decide the way forward, because we have all these like half done specs where you can't really like move forward without just decisions on some of these things.
Yep. So if anybody minds, I can just start blasting my questions. So my first question is one of the PRs specifies that on the fork boundary, we should just drop all of the blob transactions with previous sidecars. Do other clients have any concerns to it, or is it just fine? We'll just start accepting new version of sidecars, and like there will be no blobs included for, I don't know, for the first and second blocks just after the fork.
So I think it's kind of a client policy thing. So if you want to, the main challenge is just that around a fork boundary, you have to kind of implement either the conversion to the new proof type. And if you do this, then like it's just additional work in the client. But I mean, if you do it, then you can keep the content. But obviously the content of the pool becomes a bit useless around a fork, because these transactions can no longer really be included into the block. I mean, there's a bunch of alternative designs as well. For example, you could convert the proofs, I guess, after building the block in a way.
So my suggestion would be maybe to remove this language from the specification and just to list like, here are a couple of things how EL client can implement this, but not necessarily commit to any of them.
Yeah, it's like it's kind of an open-ended thing anyway. That's the thing. There's a lot of options.
Okay, so like I would be fine the spec containing just it is up to the client implementation to decide what to do with the existing blobs on the fork boundary.
Yeah.
Okay. So yep. Sorry.
Just a small question. What do you guys think about P2P? do you plan to decline to reject transactions of certain proof type before or after fork?
Before I can answer that question, can somebody tell me like this wrapper version change, is it somehow similar to like TX envelope, how we went from like not having a version byte and then we can just look at this version byte and decide how to decode the rest of the network message?
So it's kind of a similar idea, yes. It's similar, but not the same. So critically, with transaction types, the payload of the transaction is an opaque data item. But in this particular change where this version byte is proposed, is just something that while you are traversing the RLP structure to decode the transaction and the proofs, you will first encounter this byte. And then you can make a decision there while you're decoding what to expect next. But it's not handled the same way as transaction types are, and I don't really anticipate that we're going to be creating a lot more mechanisms like this. This is really just a way for us to like know at the decoding time what is the intended type of this proof.
But for all intents and purposes, like the types, the underlying types are the same, right? It just what the proofs mean is different.
Yeah. I mean, from what I understand, since the cell proofs is just an extension of, I mean, it uses kind of the same data items. It's not exactly the same because you're going to have a bit more, like the proofs are a bit larger for the cell proofs, right? So you have a couple, like it's just like it changes the number of items and so on.
Yeah, there's more of them than there would be for KZG proofs.
Yeah. So
For
this
like
may
a blob
also
KZG.
point to a solution that we for the other question that was raised, how to handle this in P2P. So one thing is that in the P2P we have a mechanism for for blob transactions. When we relay them on the P2P, they are kind of pull only. So we announce that this transaction exists, and then it's up to the client to pull it. And the client, before it has downloaded this particular blob transaction, it has knowledge about the transaction type and the size of the transaction. So I think because the cell proofs are larger than the no, I guess it doesn't work because of call data. I was just thinking that maybe there would be a way for us to somehow know ahead of time if this was an old or new blob transaction, and we could maybe avoid even fetching it. But I guess that's not really possible. So basically what we're going to be seeing is if around the time of the fork, there's going to be some peers that will still announce some old version blob transactions, and I guess these can just be dropped then.
But if you receive new type before the fork, I mean, you can collect some of them to build the very first block after the fork, for example.
Yeah, I would say it's something that it's a bit like the activation of, for example, 1559 or other types of, like basically like with other transaction types where like even before the fork, it's technically okay to accept these transactions and put them into the pool. It's just they cannot be included in the block.
So let's consider both types okay, and do not like kick this peer for.
I wouldn't do that, no, because like you said, these like sending new type of proofs is useful for building the block after the fork. However, maybe you should put a bit of a cutoff there. Like if you shouldn't be like, first of all, in the implementation, you shouldn't really start sending these transactions before the fork, because yeah, I mean it's basically they're not really going to be used. But also if someone spams the pool like weeks before the fork with these types of transactions, is also kind of bad, right? So we want to we have to apply some nuance there to figure out what's the correct period for rejecting it.
Yes, and actually after the fork, we can not request it. It's like because of call data, there is no 100%. We can't be 100% sure, but if transaction size will be lower than minimal possible transaction size with style proofs, then we can be sure that it's old format and not requested.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
yes, and if the data length is high enough, then we are requesting it, and it can be transaction with cell proofs or old transaction with some call data, but it will be, I think, almost never like that.
Yeah, I also think so. The optimization you mentioned there is quite good. So I think there is this cutoff size where we can definitely know it's not going to be a blob transaction with cell proofs, and these we can just ignore. So the only ones that we would possibly fetch are the ones that have a lot of call data, and then it's the question just if it's a problem that we have to fetch these transactions. And I mean, at some point after the fork, like, I don't know, a month or a couple weeks after, we're going to have another release out of the clients anyways, where we will just start rejecting these transactions, I guess. So yeah, like the whole idea with this version byte is just to make sure that we can handle these transactions outside of the fork schedule, but it's up to the clients to decide how to handle them.
Yeah, so on our side, again, any change that makes the decoding non-fork dependent is great, and wrapper version seems to accomplish just that. TLDR is supportive.
Great. So yeah, I'm happy to summarize all this, and it seems like this is a pretty meaty, isolated topic, and I, communicate the feedback back to Francis and let him know if there's any, revisions that he should be making. But sounds like this has been a pretty productive conversation. Any final thoughts on this topic before we move on? Great. And then within the list of issues, there was one last one. Katya, again, just trying to level set my understanding of where we're at with things. I believe this one had been open for a while, the beacon metrics. I don't know if I see you on the call. I don't know if there's anything specific that you want to flag for this PR, or if it's just sort of moving along as the project progresses.
Yeah, I will. Well, I am currently working on this PR. It is open because I'm implementing these metrics in every client, so it just takes time. And we have also updates on the metrics. So the next update, I think, will be about the validator custody and backfill process. So we're going to start from TECO with this metric, and I will edit later. We'll see the result, and I will edit later. So it is open because it's in progress. That is why it's open. We have also a PeerDAS dashboard on the IFPandaOps dashboards. So yeah, we have some clients on it, like Lighthouse, Prism, Teku, Grandin, and I hope other clients will also join this dashboard.
Great, thanks so much. Pari, going back to and Barnabas, we had this async document coming together, Google Doc last week, talking about status of testing tooling. I put a table in the PR, the agenda issue, if there's anything that you want to speak to about status of new transaction format for Spammer, TX Spammer, P2P testing tool, or checkpoints.
Yeah, so I think for the spammer, the last agreement was that the transaction format for the one submitting the transaction doesn't change. So that should be a closed issue. For the peer-to-peer testing tool, we are still working on it. I think there's a Telegram group where Sam is actively discussing what approach to use, but I don't think it would be ready in the next week at least. And for Checkpoint Z, we're mainly waiting for specs to freeze. And once specs are freeze, then we have to update 1 or 2 dependencies. And once the dependencies are updated, then we have Checkpoint Z ready as well. But in the meantime, we should still be able to do checkpoint sync via a beacon node. And if you need the password to access a beacon node API, just DM us and we can get that to you.
Great, thank you. Minhai, I see you on here from Sunnyside. I don't know if there's anything that you want to mention about the root cause analysis and I guess, the max blob testing that you've been doing. I just dropped a link to your latest Notion in the chat.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, I am currently working on a news report that will be complete in a few hours after the call. But the gist of it is that we've been testing. So we noticed that the maximum blob count that we noticed from last testing was about 10 blobs per block. So we were root causing it, and in doing so, we tried different combinations of clients. So when using only Lighthouse and Prism, we noticed that the blob count could increase to 20 blobs per block. So then I also did the testing with other clients like Grandine, Lodestar, Teku, and so on. So that in those tests, I found that some specific consensus clients yielded in a lower blob count compared to the baseline test I did with Lighthouse and Prism. So that will be in the next report. And also when working with some of the execution clients, the issue was that TX pool was hitting some limits. So the ELs were dropping blobs from the TX pool after hitting a specific number of blobs. So I had to either increase the TX pool size through the configuration. And I think this is something that we might want to consider when we decide to increase blob limits in PeerDAS.
Great, thanks. And sorry, did you mention when you thought you were going to publish this?
In a few hours.
In a few hours. Okay, great.
Yeah.
And then I just dropped a image in the chat, just like sort of a random scattering of testing related status updates that I'd seen. I don't know if PandaOps or Sunnyside or Steel. I'm still trying to understand how to bucket sort all these, but yeah, if anyone wants to provide updates on these, that'd be
I can
great.
give an update. So deploy at least one node with withhold column. We've already done this. We have roughly 20-30% of the network doing this. So it's been successful. And so far we're able to withstand the flag itself or the chaos the flag causes. Verify all nodes are properly configured. We've had all the client teams look through that, and that is also working. Pre-mine node keys, maybe once I'm done, Barnabas can give an update on that. Him and Raphael have been looking into this. Implement flag to advertise false CGC count. I don't think we have this right now. Inode limitation issue. So that's the database reworking that Manu was talking about earlier. So I would consider this done. And batch publishing column optimization. Last I know, there's a Go as well as, if I'm not wrong, a Rust implementation. So I'm not sure if every client will be able to do this, but yeah, maybe the client teams would be able to talk about this.
I can mention the pre-mine node keys to ensure coverage across all column subnets is done. So from our side, we have mined all the keys that we need to create a 16-node network with each node covering 8 subnets. And this will enable us to test if every single client is able to serve all subnets. last week I've been working on setting these custom node keys into the different client teams, and right now we have it working for every single client. So we can do some local testing and figure out if everything is working as expected. And then the next step of this would be to ensure validator custody is also working as expected.
Great, thanks, Barnes and Pari. There's a handful of other items on the agenda. Just one small ask. If anyone wants to comment on the issue, we're trying to get a sort of a single to-do list or source of truth of status for each of the clients pointed at, just so that people have visibility across the different clients for setting up dev nets and testing and things of that nature. So yeah, I also went through the Discord, and I'm just trying to get a sense of who all's actively contributing. So yeah, feel free to comment on the issue. Link to maybe a top level governing issue that, or a PR that kind of gives us a sense of your overall progress and how you're moving through things, how you're tracking things. And that would be very much appreciated. There was one, I guess, fairly substantial discussion item, which this is just kind of speaking to the overall schedule. We can come back to this later, but I just wanted to get people thinking about it and then open the floor up for any pressing, more timely discussion items.
Yeah, maybe I can talk about DevNet 6 a bit. So we normally maintain the spec document. I've shared this earlier. And thanks for collating all the PRs already. So based on the decisions we have today, we'll pin a commit hash in the PR. Maybe we wait another day for whatever can be merged to get merged already. And then we should have a proper fixed spec for PeerDAS DevNet 6. And the moment that there is an EL and CL able to interrupt, there will be a kurtosis config there, and then we can expand that config as we get closer to a DevNet. Does about like 2-ish weeks from now sound realistic to client teams? I feel like if we set a deadline, it might help us at least get a sense of when we want to ship this.
Is validator custody going to be required for DevNet 6?
I think that's up for discussion. Ideally, yes.
There's no reason not to, there's no reason for us to launch DevNet 6 without it, in my opinion. So that's one of the key features that we've been pushing for quite a while.
The thing is validator custody is backwards compatible, so we can still launch it without and then add it as and when clients have it ready. Sorry, yeah, Jimmy had his hand up. Do you want to go?
Yeah. So just to your point, it's validator custody is backward compatible, so it could be deployed anytime. But I feel like the sooner we have a DevNet 6 running with like CL and EL interrupt testing started, I think that would be ideal. If we have an implementation of EL that is ready for the self-proof computation, then I feel like we could start DevNet 6 and all the features can be deployed anytime after we launch the DevNet.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. Maybe that should be the priority order. So if your client team has 10 issues, try and focus the ones that are more self-proof computation oriented first, and then push the validator custody stuff towards the end so that we can still deploy the network, we can have it live, we can do the testing, and then we can update validator custody as and when client teams are ready for it. Yeah, that feels like the fastest path forward.
Great. And then in the chat, there's some EIP related items. So I'm aware of the sort of primary PeerDAS EIP. ETH Dreamer. Jimmy, you flagged for me that this was the draft version of the BPO hard forks that is up for debate in terms of being included in the Fusaka update or not. And then there's two others that Francis noted for me that are related to hardware and bandwidth and max blob flags. I'm just trying to get a better understanding of the likelihood of these three having shipping with PeerDAS, and if people could speak to the sort of impact that that would have on design decisions and ability to scale blobs with that hard fork.
Yeah, I can talk about the BPO hard fork. So Mark, Eve Dreamer from our team has created this PR, and it's like the reason why I want to have it included is it's like even if we're able to get to 50 plus blobs in the testnet, it's still quite uncomfortable and risky to actually deploy this onto a mainnet. So ideally we start with something that we think would be safe enough, and then if we have the BPO hard fork, then we could schedule a BPO hard fork like pretty much immediately after the Tulu fork. And I think Sen also mentioned that with
that never works. An immediate quick hard fork. We always talk about that, but it never works like that.
And this would be sort of like the gas limit change, right? So we did have technically a gas limit change in between the last fork and now. So the idea is that it would be in a similar vein.
Yeah, I guess the main difference with the BPO hard fork is it doesn't require most of the boilerplate of a regular hard fork. I think if I understood correctly, like most of the things like the beacon block data structure and the gossip topic, those remain unchanged. The only thing that changed is the blob count. So everything else remains unchanged. So it should be a pretty small change for clients, and should be able to roll out pretty quickly. Yeah, but
I would not compare gas limit change to a blob change, because gas limit change can be literally rolled out by anyone at any time, independent of any coordination. And the blob change would require every single node to change their client to the latest version and to have a fork at a specific block height. So I don't think this is comparable at all.
Agreed, but the main reason why forks have been relatively slow, at least on the CL side, is they involve a complete new data structure and so on. And BPO forks is fundamentally different in that way. It makes it easier. So you could imagine we even just have a BPO fork scheduled with the PeerDAS fork, saying that in 3 months, increase it by X, and you basically cancel it if it doesn't happen. And that way you keep the same data structure, you promise it is growth only. Well, I don't think it has to be. But yeah, you will have some amount of coordination effort. The main reason it's being proposed is it feels a lot safer to do this as opposed to doing a massive bump at the PeerDAS fork. So you could do a moderate bump, analyze how PeerDAS is going on mainnet, and then do a bigger bump.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, the roadmap discussion that we had in person with some of the EF people was, I guess, the hard fork with no, this is speculation, and I'll just kind of repeat it, just take, some people are aware of this, but do the hard fork with no increase in blobs just to observe all the changes. And then 2 weeks later, it was, I believe, to 2x the blobs. Then 2 months later, 2x the blobs, 2 months later, 2x the blobs, and be able to observe it. If I'm understanding correctly, the BPO hard fork is a requirement to be able to proceed in that manner. Is that correct?
Has any of the client actually taken a look, like how easy it would be to do this incremental blob increase?
Yeah, Ethereum has an implementation in Lighthouse already, but I think the hard part is we would need more CL clients to look at it because an implementation, like every client team implements it differently. I think especially Nimbus has a lot of intricacies, so it would be good to have them look at it and if this would actually work for them or not. And also to Francesco's point, I do think pre-scheduling linear increase could also work. I think there's roughly like 2 or 3 different ways we could imagine getting to a higher blob count safer. I think BPO is going to be one option that exists.
Just to be clear, we would also need to update the EA for this, right? Because the EA also needs to know about the max and target.
Yes.
So it's
And
not
then-
really a soft fork after all.
Yeah, I think it would still have to be a hard fork. But yeah,
because
we have to check. I think increasing might be a soft fork, decreasing might be a hard fork.
No, but like it comes all back to the gas calculation on the EA side. Like right now we have to hard code the blob numbers in the EA config in the Genesis.json file. So I would assume that we would also have to, even if we do a linear change, we would have to update the EA side as well.
Yeah, I think the linear change might be harder, but I mean, yeah, I think we have to look at it. For BPO, it's relatively straightforward. It's essentially a new fork, except it doesn't have all the complications of a fork. I think for a linear increase, it might be a bigger discussion. We don't really have a direct way on how this needs to be done, and it would need implementations. Whereas with the BPO fork, it's literally define a new fork, call it BPO1, have a new blob schedule on the EL side, have a new config value on the CL side, and then ship it.
Plus all the coordination, plus all the test nets.
Well, that's the benefit. There shouldn't have to be any test nets. It's all about analysis on mainnet. So you ship PeerDAS on mainnet, and same way how we came up with the logic for 6.9 is safe on mainnet, like you can ship 6.9 on a devnet, it doesn't really tell you much because the way 6.9 behaves on a devnet is different from mainnet.
But we should still roll all features out on a testnet first, which requires
still
additional
less-
coordination.
Yeah,
so
but
that's
it's
my
about
point. Like
doing one devnet. It's not as much as a full fork.
Okay, great. Well, I think we're at time. Thanks everyone for bearing with me today. This has really helped me kind of get my bearings, and I will get the notes prepared and circulated here in the near future. And then I will see you next week and async until then.